Thank you all for coming to our solution session, before, during, and after expanding transfer support using transfer student capital. There we go. Okay, quick overview of our agenda for today. We're going to start by going over introductions of ourselves, over objectives, icebreaker and handout, and solution, before, during, and after. And as you continue with us through our session, please note that that is the focal point of our session today, before, during, and after. So quick introductions. My name is Caitlyn Walling. I'm the transfer program coordinator at UC Riverside for College of Humanities and Social Sciences. I am also a transfer student and first gen. I'm currently in the last year of my undergrad. I'm very excited to be here and amplify the voices for my other fellow transfer students that are also first gen. My undergrad is in linguistics and minoring in education. I plan on getting a master's in communicative sciences with disorders to pursue speech therapy. And I kind of want to go into higher ed. I'm still trying to decide my path, and I'm excited to be here to meet with you all and to be in these spaces to communicate with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlyn. Hello, everyone. My name is Stella Rocha. I'm the Student Academic Specialist for the College of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences at the University of California, Riverside. I oversee the transfer component of our program alongside my colleague who will introduce herself shortly. I am a first-generation transfer student, also a non-traditional student. I started my journey later on in life, so navigating the higher education process was quite challenging for me as I wore multiple hats and the different identities that I had, or have rather. So it's really an honor and a pleasure to be here with you all today to talk about our program, the before, during, and after. But also, I am a UCR alum, so I am a product of the program you're going to hear about today. It's made some changes throughout the years, but definitely, like I said, an honor and a privilege to be here today.
Thank you all. Normally we're roaming around the room and talking, but due to technical, all the technical fabulousness, we have to stand over here so we can get your closed captions going on. So bear with us. So welcome everybody. My name is Dr. Shellee Stewart. I'm the Assistant Director of the First Year Experience Programs at UC Riverside within the College of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences. I'm also a co-chair of a group called the UC Transfer Success Coalition, and it's a group made up of transfer professionals and transfer center staff across the UC system. And actually it originated from a NIST conference 5 years ago, where we identified that although we're doing some great work at the UC system for our transfer students, we weren't talking to each other about it. And so we formed that group. We meet monthly. We talk about transfer stuff across the UC system. And we have some very proud highlights like a National Transfer Student Week celebration UC-wide with a social media campaign. So very proud of that. I am also the author of Be Great, Your Journey is Your Legacy, which is a book that we use for our transfer learning community, which we'll talk about a little later. Shameless plug, I have a presentation on Friday, a 30-minute, if you want to join to learn about that a little more. And I'm also the proud owner of When Life Gives You Lemons Life Coaching, LLC. And that's just a testament to when you have dreams and you have passions and you want to do things, you could do them all. They may not happen the way you think they should look, but eventually, if you're diligent and you persist and you're doing passionate work that you do, you could do all the things that you want to do. So now that you know a little bit about us, right? You get to know a little bit about who we are, where we come from. Now I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Caitlyn, and she's going to continue on for us.
Thank you. So quickly to go over our objectives, as this is a solution showcase. So we have 4 to cover for today. 1, understand how to use transfer student capital to inform decision-making to promote academic and social adjustments for programs serving transfer students. Number 2, increase your knowledge of transfer student capital before a proposal as a solution to expanding a transfer program. 3, provide an example of how transfer student capital can be used during the implementation of a transfer learning community and transfer year experience. And 4, provide a model for assessing outcomes after implementation of a transfer learning community and a transfer year experience. So quick icebreaker, I'm just gonna poll the audience really quick. Can you raise your hand if you're from a 2-year institution? Thank you. Thank you, guys. A four-year institution? Thank you. That's a majority. Thank you guys so much for coming. We're so excited to have you here. And then if there's a brave soul in the audience that's willing to talk into the mic, why you chose our session for today, you can raise your hand and I'll come to you. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So my name is Brian Sway. I'm with the College of New Jersey, and the reason I chose to come to this session, as we become more and more transfer friendly at TC&J, we're looking for ways to continue to give back to our students moving forward, and what better way to have students learn about the process of transferring from students who have been through that, been in those shoes, and we're just kind of seeing what we're doing and what else we can do. So part of the reason I came.
Thank you. As a transfer student, I really appreciate you making the effort. Does anyone else want to share before I go back? Okay, cool. Last chance? Okay. Well, I'm going to pass it off to Stella to cover our handout, and all of them are out.
Thank you, Caitlyn. Thank you all so much. So on your chair, you should have a handout, right? Within that handout, since this is a solution showcase, in that handout we define transfer student capital, which is the framework and the lens that we use to develop the program that you're going to learn about today, right? And the goal is for you to be able to take all the tools and the resources that we have implemented within our program, so that way you can implement something similar at your institution. So again, defining transfer student capital is the knowledge and experience students need for a successful academic and social transition. Now I'm going to briefly go over the reflective questions. So the before, what are some of the needs and or trends of your current transfer student population? During, how can you incorporate academic and social adjustment programs, events, or spaces for transfers at your institution? And finally, the after. How can you assess varying outcomes and data to address the needs of transfer students? So I saw some of y'all already writing down some things on the sheet, so I'm really, really excited to get to hear about what you have already jotted down, and also the opportunity for you to be able to jot down some information that you're going to learn along this session, and then at the end you'll have an opportunity to ask them some questions, so that way we can assist you as you move forward in your transfer journey for your students. Okay, so for context, we're going to get into a little bit about what the University of California demographic looks like. So moving forward in this presentation, for the University of California, Riverside, we'll reference it as UCR. UCR is on the quarter system. The quarter system consists of 10 weeks of academic instruction. We currently have over 26,000 students enrolled. We are a Hispanic serving institution as well as a first-generation college student serving institution. Everything you're going to learn about today is based out of the College of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences, also known as CHAS, and we currently serve over 10,000 students. So you're probably thinking at the screen, wow, yes, you're looking at it right, half of the population of the entire university. UC Riverside admits students, transfer students, in the fall and the winter. For fall of 2023, we had 581 incoming transfer students in our program. And for the winter of 2024, we had 92 enrolled students, which brings us to a total of 673 transfer students that we're serving. So you're probably thinking that's great, and you're going to learn all about the greatness of our program. But as I mentioned to you earlier, if you recall, I'm a product of the CHAS Transfers First program. In the past, it was an optional program where students can sign up and get a mentor, right, and have that mentor follow them throughout their academic and social journey to teach them on the ways that they can best acclimate to a four-year university. But the only issue that we had and that we were facing is that we were only serving a fraction of our transfer students due to optional programming.
So I know y'all are learning so much at NIST. So by the way, this is my 5th NIST. I have been learning in the seats for 5 years now. And in those seats, I'm like, oh, this is great. Why can't we do this? Oh my gosh, that would be so great to implement at my campus. And you have this list of like dream things that you want to do, right? That are like, I don't know if the system's going to allow it or if I'm going to have leadership support for that, right? But let me tell you, our solution came from a ton of ideas that I got from NIST. So over the years, I've pocketed these ideas and I'm like, someday I'm gonna be able to do this. Someday I'm gonna do a transfer year experience. Someday I'm gonna make the students do this. Well, the day came when our dean came and said, hey, we need to support more transfer students. And I was kind of like, duh, like y'all, like, yeah, exactly. I know we need to support more transfer students, right? So it was a dream come true. So now we had upper leadership support, right? So I was able to take a lot of the things that I learned at NIST and implement them in this space that we're gonna describe to you a lot about, okay? So with our solutions, right, our issue was, Stella described, we're supporting previously a fraction of our student population, right? So what can we do to do that better? What solutions? So in developing a solution, these were the things that we took into consideration. How can we maintain the quality while also increasing the quantity, right? Sometimes when you grow big real fast, a lot of things fall through the cracks, right? So how do we maintain that quality that we had in our previous programs that were optional? How do we take what's existing, what we're doing well, what things are going great, what are the things that the students love, and how do we take that and expand it? Also, key thing here, where we were able to make it mandatory. So the 600 and something students that we have in this fall and winter, we are making them partner with us. And that's kind of a revolutionary idea for us, not within our college, because our freshmen are required to partner in our learning communities, but for the transfer students, this was a new idea. So making it mandatory. And last but not least, we wanted to make sure we were informed by the lens of transfer student capital. How can we make sure to capture the social and academic adjustment that the students need to be successful as they're entering into our university and through our university? Okay, so told you before, during, and after. That's kind of our theme here, right? So we've been hearing a lot of data, a lot of all the amazing data informs so many different things, and there's much power in data, and we're going to talk a little bit about this with the proposal that we're, the details that I'll describe, right? So using data, right? But we have a new program. This is a new program for us. So y'all gonna hear about what we did to create it and implement it, to ask for the money to be able to do it, right? And how we had the support from the top down to be able to do it, how we implemented it. And then at the end, we're gonna talk about the outcomes as well. But we're not gonna talk about the outcomes and crunch the numbers for you and give you all the numbers, because guess what? We're still crunching the numbers. This is a very new program, but we did wanna take this space to share with you all what we were able to do from ideas from NIST, from leadership support, from the data to actually implement some large-scale programs at our university, okay? So before, the proposal. This is the scary proposal. Anytime you're gonna ask for money or ask for anything, right? Time and resources, the proposal. So in the beginning stage, the proposal, we wanted to make sure to take into consideration transfer student capital, that academic and social adjustment throughout the entire process. So the first step was identifying the problem, which we described to y'all. Optional support, we wanna make it mandatory. Then choosing the framework to address that, transfer student capital, making sure we're embedding and talking about academic and social adjustment for their success. The next step is to identify how the proposal will be used. This document, Google Doc, however we want to print it out and hand it to leadership, how will this be used? First, we're really intentional about it. Of course, informational, right? You can flip through it, read through it. Our dean was able to see, we were able to pull numbers from our successes before. So we did have a transfer transition course before, but it only served 120 of our students. So we were able to pull numbers for that, to be able to pull some of the data to highlight our successes, and to be able to inform the decision-making and be informational for what that looked like, right? Then, of course, the ask, like, what are you asking for? When you're talking to leadership, they're like, what do you want? How do you want it? Show me that we need it, right? So when you're asking for the monies, you want to make sure that it's clear in that proposal, right? And then outcomes. We keep hearing outcomes, data-driven outcomes, all the outcomes, right? So we have a final slide that will talk about the specific outcomes, but including that in the proposal. Then we have conducting our research. What does the literature say? What does the literature say about transfer students? What does the literature say about our transfer students? What does the data we already have say about our transfer students? We can say we think that they need X, Y, Z, but what do they actually need? And then the next step is developing the proposal and assembling the proposal with that in mind, right? Collecting the research and assembling it. So before we roll this out, before we present it to the dean, we need to make sure that we have all eyes on deck and all feedback readily available. So we students, our current transfer students, literally sitting down, hey, what do you think about this? Is this gonna work for you? Do you see any challenges? You think there would be any obstacles in this? Okay, let's fine tune that, go back to the drawing board, fine tune that. Great. Then taking it to our faculty and staff. Hey, do you think this will work? Is there something that we're missing that you do in your functions that I don't know about that will be impacted by this, right? And let's talk through that, fine tune the proposal. Last step before we present it, taking it back to the student. So any changes that were made, delivering that back to the student. Hey, we made revisions. Do you think this will work? Do you see anything that we need to change? Let's go ahead and be proactive and adjust those now the best we can. And that way we have a fabulous program that we're gonna be able to deliver to you. And then the last step is a 6-part proposal. You see on the right-hand side, the different parts of the proposal. The literature, the data, outcomes, all of that was strategically put into the proposal that we then presented to the dean. And guess what? The dean was on board. The dean said, do it. He gave the green light. We had this amazing program, and now it was time to deliver it to our students in fall of 2023, so very recently. So now that we've learned a little bit about before, the proposal, how we included transfer student capital in the process of the proposal, now I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Stella, who's gonna talk about during and the implementation of this program. So she's gonna be able to share with y'all, it's our baby, so we co-parent it. We co-parent this baby, so I had a large part to do with putting it together, and both her and Caitlyn have a huger part to do with implementing it and making sure it's successful. So I'm gonna have Stella tell you about how we co-parent this baby of ours and shed a little light on what that looks like.
Thank you, Dr. Shellee. So as Dr. Shellee mentioned, right, the proposal is the first step, and now we're gonna implement it. So what does that look like? Well, we developed the Transfer Learning Community, TLC. So we all love our transfers, right? So I always like to say I want to give them all the tender loving care that they need. As a transfer student myself, I realize that it's a struggle to navigate these spaces that we're not necessarily familiar with. However, the narrative within institutions is that transfer students should already know everything, right? So with that, and within our TLC, we provide transfer students with the academic and social support needed to be successful as they transition into a 4-year institution. So what does that look like? So on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see the implementation part, right? So we made it mandatory. We've established that. It's a mandatory 2-unit course. So all transfer students coming into the College of Humanities, Arts, and Social Sciences are required to take our course, right? Now, there are some exceptions. For example, students that are in an honors program, they already have their own learning community. So we don't make them. We're not here to create another barrier for transfer students, right? We're here to be able to help them through this, right? And helping them excel and advance as they bring in their transfer student capital and move forward. So we don't make them do it. We go ahead and give them an exception. And then for other students that may be athletes or other things going on, maybe studying abroad, then they can go ahead and submit and send us an email regarding an exception, and then we'll move forward from there. So that's what that looks like. Transfer inclusive curriculum, right? You're probably thinking, okay, well, how do you do that? You know, what's included in the course? Well, as Dr. Shellee mentioned earlier, right, we use a book by our very own Dr. Shellee Stewart, Be Great, Your Journey is Your Legacy. Right? So we use that, and every week, the 10 weeks, they're going through one chapter. But not only that, they're also being introduced to a different campus partner every week, right? And I'm not going to go through all the 10 different resources, but I'm just going to give you an example, right? So an example of one of the campus resources is basic needs, right? Basic needs is probably one of the biggest challenges transfer students face. They have a lot of multiple identities. A lot of them are parenting scholars, right? They need these resources, and that's the first step to be able to get them to those resources, right? So there's a lot of different programs within it. Oftentimes what I have found for our transfer students in our program is that they're not necessarily inclined to go out and research that service on their own. Why? It's not necessarily that they don't have the capability, right? Because we all have already established that they have that transfer student capital coming in, right? But it's more so, I'm not sure if I can go into that space. I don't know if I'm welcome, right? They have that imposter syndrome, that sense of belonging. So the goal is we hired our 6 transfer ambassadors to facilitate this course, and alongside with our program coordinator, Caitlyn, and our transfer ambassadors seek them through and walk them through every week. It is an asynchronous course, right? And so I probably should have mentioned this in the mandatory 2-unit course. It is graded on a, oh goodness, I just lost my words. Satisfactory, no credit, so it does not affect their GPA. I still highly encourage students, though, to take it very, very seriously, because there are other areas of, their path that it can affect, for example, financial aid, right? So I want to make sure that we're completely transparent with them going in. Moving back to transfer inclusive curriculum, as they're going through these 10 weeks, the students are going to have discussion boards that they're going to take part in, right? So they're required to answer a couple questions, right? And one of those questions can include, okay, what did you learn about what campus resource did you learn, and have you utilized it? If you have not utilized it, at what point can you see yourself utilizing that space? And if not, is there somewhere or someone that you know that can benefit from that resource? Maybe another friend or peer or colleague, maybe even someone within your home, right? Transfer students have those multiple identities. So that's the goal behind that. In addition to that, the students are required during the middle of the quarter to write a mid-quarter reflection, right, and tell us all about it. And that's, again, facilitated by our transfer ambassadors. At the end of the quarter, they're also required to write an end of the quarter reflection based on everything that they've learned throughout the quarter. And so that will, there's a whole rubric established, and there's questions that are pre-established for them to be able to help our transfer ambassadors be successful, not only in the roles of students, but also as their peer facilitating this program. So with that, the transfer ambassadors are very, very important piece of our program. We wouldn't be able to do this without our current transfer students. So thank you, Caitlyn. And that comes in with the academic and social adjustment. So on the next slide, we're going to get into a little bit more about the during, because we're still at that point, because I'm not done yet. Yes, we have the TLC, the Transfer Learning Community, but we've already established, again, that our transfer students have multiple identities, right? So we can't hold them to the same expectations that we do our first-year students coming in. So we really can't hold transfer students to taking a learning community for one whole year. But we still want to continue to be that support system for our students, right? A lot of the talk throughout this conference is building that empathy and building those systems of support and taking what they already have and expanding it, right? Elevating it. So we offer a transfer year experience, the TYE, which provides an optional opportunity for transfer students to continue their partnership with us their first year. And they can apply on our website. Very easy peasy. It's just a short Google form, a couple of questions. Caitlyn and I will go ahead and review those and add them to our Canvas page, right? Because we use Canvas. They're here at UCR. So we'll upload it. It is also asynchronous. And we'll get into a little bit more what that looks like. But again, for students, by students. So the implementation piece of the TYE, it's that continued peer support, right? By our transfer ambassadors and also by our program coordinator. Our program coordinator, Caitlyn, she'll go ahead and add announcements that can include all kinds of different campus resources that are happening, different types of events, all cater to the demographic that we serve. Our community building activities. This is like my funnest. This is the funnest one that Caitlyn and I have so much fun talking about things that we want to do for our transfers. And as transfer students ourselves, even some of the barriers that we face. So what can we do to start taking our unfortunate circumstances, creating something for our students to benefit from, so that way they don't have to go through the same thing, right? So within our community building activities, we started to host Transfer Tuesdays, right? So Transfer Tuesdays every week, it goes in and it's everywhere. They come into our space, they gather, they're able to come in, have some snacks. They have that social adjustment, right? That's the social adjustment component where they come in. We have our transfer ambassadors present, our program coordinator, and they're able to sit there and talk. And that's incorporated with different types of workshops we'll get into next. But we also want to incorporate an activity because we don't want to continue to hound them about all the social aspects and everything, the social expectation of what they need to do along with the academics. So we want them to be able to decompress and take a minute and just know that they matter, right? So one of my favorite activities is, and I'm also watching on campus, what are other people doing? What are other folks doing? And I noticed that most campus partners are often giving away bags. Okay, how many of you give out canvas bags, tote bags? Yeah, I know there's probably more of you, but
what you don't have is
pencil pouches. So that's our favorite. I know. Caitlyn's like, oh man, okay. Pencil pouch making. We got pencil pouches, plain canvas pencil pouches off Amazon, very inexpensive. We purchase stencils. Students come in, they make their own. They can be creative. They can tell their story through it to put in their bag, right? Because students always have flash drives, all kinds of stuff. So that's really one of my favorites. One of my favorites. All right, moving on. Professional development workshops. Professional development workshops can include networking, lunch and learns. Another one of my favorites because as you can tell, I love to talk, but I also love food. So I want to be able to provide my transfer population with anything that I can when they come to visit my space and also give them that access to the strong support system that they have at UC Riverside that includes faculty and staff. Yeah, you heard me right, faculty and staff. Very, very integral piece of our part. So we had a lunch and learn recently, a networking lunch and learn, and I had folks, I was very intentional when I invited folks. I invited folks from orientation. How many folks are in here from orientation? Woo, woo. Awesome. Okay, orientation, faculty, School of Education, all around. Grad division, right? Amongst other folks. Academic Resource Center, Transfer Success Program. All of those folks came out. The wonderful Caitlyn here created a PowerPoint for students. And together we worked on different types of questions that the transfer students can ask our campus partners. And maybe to get that conversation going. Before we started the lunch and learn, we went through the presentation and we guided the students. And then also we ended with, now remember, this is your opportunity to get to know the folks who work day in and day out to make this experience greater for you. More importantly, we want you to tell them how you feel about the services and the resources that they provide for you to make it a bigger, better experience for transfers. So, one of my favorite parts. Yes. Caitlyn would like to add something.
I also wanted to add that in the process of putting on this event, we also wanted to be intentional in connecting our transfer students to faculty and staff that were also transfers. So on top of the faculty and staff that were there that support them, we also wanted to connect them to staff that have been through that process, that understand them. And as a transfer student, you kind of have a quicker turnaround. You don't have the full, technically 4 years because you transferred in. So you have a different experience than first-year students, like freshman students. So it's important. It was important to me and to Stella to make sure that we connected them not only to the resources to further themselves when they leave UCR, but also to connect them to transfers. So thank you.
Thank you, my amazing Caitlyn. So yes, and she's absolutely correct. We're very intentional with that. In fact, we had some faculty there who were also immigrant students themselves, right? Transfer students. So we know all too well the barriers that our transfer students are facing. And so we wanted to let them know that it is okay, number one, to be a transfer student. Number two, it's okay not to know and to ask questions, right? But number three, and the most important, is to let our transfer students know that they belong at our university. They belong here in our society and they deserve a seat at the table. So that's one what I'll leave you with that professional development workshop. Now moving on to the personal development workshops. Well, another one of my favorites, when I was a student in the CHAS Transfers First program, I remember coming in, accidentally bumping in and getting to meet Dr. Shellee Stewart, who I quickly knew that she was going to be my mentor and my confidant as I navigated that space. Because I can be real in who I was as a transfer student. I didn't have to be embarrassed that I was 30 plus years old and, having kids of my own that are navigating the same space as I am, but it's okay. And she let me know that. But one things that she taught me early on that I thought I had it all nailed down, because like I said, right, I was already a mom, a wife, navigating college, like I got this. The one important lesson that she taught me was time management, because it looks different once you get to the four-year institution. So now you're like, what? I got to do a class at this time, and then I got to go to this space over here at this time. Oh no, I got to go pick up my kids. That was one of the most challenging parts, right? So if you're a faculty member, is there any faculty in here? Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Hands off to you. But that was kind of one of the biggest things that I was bumping into. Everything that was available, the best classes I wanted to take by the best faculty that was available wasn't accessible to me because of the time, right? So, and the reason why I bring that up is because time management was critical, and learning, where can I move things around? How can I move my schedule around to pursue my goals and dreams? Because you know what? I matter, right? And so with that, we're teaching students about time management and what it looks like. And when we don't have all the answers, because we don't, we have students with those multiple identities. We have students with disabilities. Time management's going to look different for them. So we're going to refer them over to the folks over in the Student Disability Resource Center to be able to help them navigate that. But more importantly, we're also teaching students, and we have a little guide on our resource page on Canvas to be able to help the students, what's the word I'm looking for? Pull their information over, transfer their Google Calendar over to their Outlook calendar, and their Canvas calendar over to that very same calendar, so they all link up. So that way, if their professors and faculty are utilizing the Canvas calendar, the students are going to be able to access it on their phones. That way they never miss a deadline. So that's what that looks like. Now you're probably thinking that this is great, right? You're a transfer student, you have your transfer student working alongside with you, you have the fabulous Dr. Shellee who's done all the research for you. What is in it for the transfer students? Well, if they do complete 10 different things that they should already be doing anyway while they're on the campus, right? As a scholar, they have to, number one, pass our TLC course, okay? Or the honors course that we spoke about earlier. And a couple of other things, I won't name them all, but a couple of them are visiting professor faculty office hours. Very, very important for them to connect and let the faculty know what their needs are. And we stress that. We can't help you if we don't know what your needs are. And your professors can't help you in week 9. You got to go in week 1 or 2, even if it's just to introduce yourself. So that's something that we're really focusing on. Then they are required to be part of 2 discussion boards. So I implemented 12 different discussion boards, right? And there's a wide variety of them, everything from just a transfer chat all the way to system impacted, right? So there's 12 different discussion boards that the students can choose from. They're facilitated by our 6 transfer ambassadors that I mentioned earlier, and they're keeping that conversation going. If a parenting scholar messages on there a question, the transfer ambassador jumps in, answers it, not only offers a resource, but adds in a follow-up question. And with that, it keeps that continued conversation going, and it's a peer-to-peer facilitation, and they're able to not only help themselves, but maybe other folks that may be having a similar issue or situation or have the similar question, right? Because we all have established already that there's no question that's a stupid question. It's just having the courage to finally ask it, right? So that is what our during looks like. And so now I'm going to pass it over to the fabulous Dr. Stewart, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about the after.
And I actually want Stella to talk just real briefly, and it was stated on the slide, but the certificate of completion. So you were saying about all this these 10 things that they're going to complete, right? Like, what do they get out of it, right? We were doing all these things, and we're saying, hey, sign up for the extra things, but what do they get out of it?
Great point. I forgot. See, I get caught up in all the excitement. So they do get a certificate of completion. The fabulous Caitlyn is going to be creating them and printing them out. We're going to be working on it together. But this is something that's really, really important to us. And we're so excited to be able to do, because we just have, we could just do anything with it, really, essentially. But they're going to get that certificate of completion. And what is that certificate of completion going to do? It's going to look really, really good on their grad school applications and also on their resumes, right? Because it doesn't matter what type of skill you have, all those skills are transferable to anywhere that you go. Right? I'm fairly new to higher education. I've only been in higher education for a few years. However, I used to work in the K-12 realm for a lot of years. So it's a different process, but it's very similar, right? So that's one of the most important things that we talk about too with our transfers. Don't feel that that it's not going to matter, because it matters. And just the responsibility alone to having to upload those 10 things to our Canvas page, and just going and maybe coming out of your comfort zone to go talk to faculty and let them know that maybe you can't make their class anymore because you don't have a babysitter. It's okay. We're going to make a plan, and we're going to help you through it. So that's what the transfer students get out of it. So thank you. There you go. Take it away.
Thanks, Stella. And I think that's really important to remember. I told you we had a lot of optional programming before and not a lot of funding for it, right? And so we had to figure out creative ways to get people to do things. So that certificate of completion idea came from transition from our old programming to this new program that we have, right? But it's still a very solid way in a very cheap way to be able to award students with some kind of something for their efforts and acknowledgement of that. And they get the fact that they completed the program. Anytime you complete any kind of program, it looks fabulous on your resume. And we're trying to propel those opportunities too for future thinking beyond where they're at now and into grad school potentially. So that certificate of completion can go a long way. It's only a piece of paper, but the students get so excited about their certificate of completion. So including that in our new program and extending that was a really fabulous choice of ours. So remember I told you we asked for the monies, right? And anytime you're asking for the monies, they want to see the outcomes, okay? They want to see the data. Well, we're not here to talk to you about the actual data. We're here to talk to you about the kind of data that we're collecting. And then hopefully in the future, in the next year or two at NIST, maybe we'll be able to come back and talk about the data we collected and all the successes we had, right? But for now, we're here to talk to you about the kind of data that we're collecting and how we're being intentional with that data. So the last part is after, and this is going to be our last portion for y'all. Then we'll do questions. And I saw yours over there. After assessing outcomes, okay? So what we did is, I told y'all we pulled some data from the successes previously in our optional programming. We had a transfer transition course that had 120 seats. We pulled data, we crunched numbers for the past few years, and what we found in that data, students who participated in our program in our transfer learning community course, which wasn't called transfer learning community then, but students who participated in that course, on average, had higher graduation rates, had higher cumulative GPA rates, and had increased use of campus resources than the students who did not participate in the course. So we use that as kind of a standard for how we plan to measure success and goals and outcomes moving forward based on that. So our previous program and the successes we had in that program, our goal is to continue those successes and make them much broader, but also collect data as we're going for feedback in different areas. So the first thing that we're going to use, and we have already began using, is our end of course survey. I know folks are aware of end of course surveys, end of class surveys, right? The institution might collect data, you collecting data, but for us, we have our own end of course survey. We use Qualtrics, and we embed it into the requirement for the course to complete as an assignment, so that we're making sure we're getting that information from them, right? In the end of course survey, we are very strategic in the kinds of questions we ask that align with our outcomes, but also help us to figure out how to improve and how can we do things better. right? And that's that student voice coming directly from the student, that data from the student. So in the end of course survey, we have questions about sense of belonging, questions about the kinds of campus resources that they're using and how often they're using them, right? We have questions about their academic and social adjustment and their satisfaction with the services that we're providing them. So those are the quantitative measures that we have in our end of course survey, but we also include qualitative measures. So those open-ended questions, tell us about your experience, tell us how we can do things better, what was the highlight of this course for you, what was a low point for this course for you, right? Collecting that qualitative data as well. So we do it at the end of the course for the transfer learning community, but we also are going to be doing an end of the program survey, which is very similar to our end of course survey. So kind of a pre and post, right? At the beginning of their year, what did this look like? And for those who continued to in the optional programming in the transfer learning community, at the end of the program, what did that look like? Did they increase their use of campus resources? Measuring their cumulative GPA? Taking a look at graduation rates over time, right? So taking a look at our transfer learning community, end of course survey, and then taking a look at our transfer year experience end of program survey and being able to collect that data and making sure that they're taking it, right? And to be able to get these questions answered and to say, hey, these are the outcomes that happened fabulously in the past, and we're anticipating that we're going to see fabulousness continuing, right? But this is how we're able to continue to say, hey, keep sending us the money. So we're able to ask for support, financial support, and our dean fabulously gave us some financial support for programming and to pay our 6 transfer ambassadors to do the work they do. So we had our program coordinator already in place in our previous structure, but our ask was also to pay our transfer students, right? A lot of times they were volunteering to do things, and that's great. Still looks great on the resume, but to pay them to help them with their basic needs, right? So we want to be able to collect this data in addition to institutional data, so that the GPAs, the cumulative GPAs, and the graduation rates eventually, being able to use that to say, hey, this program was a success, or we fell kind of short in this area according to the students, so next year we'll make sure to do a better job or maybe adjust that a little bit differently. So we talked about before, we have these ideas. Y'all have ideas. I know y'all got ideas. We talked about them in the session earlier when we were writing down like our dreams and hopes, right? What is this beautiful, perfect, ideal utopia of the transfer experience? Well, you can take those things and implement them. Sometimes, like we talked about, having that higher level leadership support, but also strategically putting together things like the ask, the proposal, looking up what current transfer students are needing on your campus, asking the transfer students themselves. And then going back to the transfer students again, once you decide that you're going to try to implement something, right? Is this going to work for you? Is this not going to work for you? Is this going to add another barrier for you? Because if it is, then let's rethink this and help us rethink this, right? So then we talk about the during, all our fabulous programming. It's going really well. We have amazing folks that are running it, current transfer students, and it's so wonderful to see Stella. Stella was one of my students, and then to see her in a professional staff capacity, I'm excited. And I'm still also excited to see where Caitlyn goes into grad school and her next steps in life, right? But our programs we're able to expand them to require some of them, and it's really exciting. And we hope to come back in the future. Yeah, we'll be back, y'all, with hopefully the numbers, right? The numbers, those fun numbers we'll make sure to make them very exciting and understandable when we come back with those numbers, okay? So that is what we have for y'all. Thank you so much. Give my fabulous people a round of applause. Yes. I had a question in the middle that I want to make sure to address. So we have, how much time do we have? 6 minutes. Okay, we don't have a lot of time for questions. Okay, so we're going to start with questions. So if you have questions for Caitlyn about the student experience or anything that we covered today, also know that the information is in your conference app, and you can connect with us on the conference app individually. It has our email addresses on there, and you can message us, and I love the conference app. It's amazing. So you had a question first and foremost, my fabulous neighbor over there. Oh, hold on. I have to bring you the mic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angie, Transfer Student Success Coordinator at CSUSB. I am an office of one, unfortunately, with our 54% of our population being transfers. Crazy, I know, we have 20,000 students. But my question is, as I am an office of one, my center is also my office. Before you started your proposal, did you already have a space? And if not, how was it established? And the second part is, where do we find your book?
Well, thank you so much. So when I first started in my role about 6 years ago, I was the transfer person and recently got a promotion. And now I'm the Frosh person, but supporting our transfer program. But we had office spaces, but we didn't actually really have a transfer space. So when they said, hey, you're going to be responsible for this transfer program, I'm like, oh, we're going to go big or go home. So what can we, so we re-envision our actual space and we made a space in our space for transfers. We made a home for our transfer students. So we had to get creative with it because we didn't have money, and it was for the transfer program, it was a staff of one. So I had to get a lot of student support, and there were so many students that were willing to volunteer their time. Of course, I would love to pay all our students for all the things, but they did really benefit from volunteering for a lot of things. So they gave us ideas on how we can repurpose our spaces, right? And I heard in a previous conference session too that somebody had they didn't have a space either, and it was just their office. And eventually, through time with advocacy and getting that student voice out there, they were able to repurpose a classroom to make it something different. So I thought I'd shamelessly plug that here. Can't remember who it was, but it was a fabulous suggestion. I was like, that's great. So we have to get creative in a lot of the stuff we do because we don't got money, we don't got time, we don't got people, we don't got the things, right? So those are some suggestions on maybe we do have a very small transfer space. It's not this really big thing, but we do have a space and a home for our transfer students to come hang out, and we had to make it and kind of force it and break those boundaries. If you wanted to purchase my book, I actually have some with me today. I plan on doing something with them tomorrow and doing some signing. Also, it's on Amazon, so you can look up on Amazon, Dr. Shellee Stewart, or Be Great, Your Journey is Your Legacy, and you can purchase them on Amazon as well. So if you message me on the conference app, we can meet up, and I have some for sale as well. Yeah, and I'll sign those ones. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, I saw him go back, and we'll come here, we're going to make them quick because I don't know how much time we have. Oh, this last one?
Hi, everyone. Dr. Charles Jackson, Director of Transfer Student Success Center at Michigan State. Wanted to know, how do you get faculty involved in this program? I know faculty, it's kind of like a hit or miss when it comes to getting them engaged with mentoring or having them build relationships with transfer students or even the entire, undergrad population.
So I'm going to deflect this one over to Stella. It's still an area of opportunity, I think, for everybody, but Stella and her great relationship building and identifying faculty that are transfer students has found a little bit of success in that. So Stella, you want to tell them about how you've been successful?
Absolutely. So I always on the lookout and the hunt for new faculty and staff that is coming in, and I just email them, introduce myself, kind of letting them know what my transfer initiatives are, what I'm working on currently in my space and our department for the success of transfer students. And I've just been so blessed that folks are just I share my story, right, with them first and foremost, letting them know who I am, what I'm about. Everything I do is deeply rooted in community. Okay, that's how I was raised. That's what I'm going to continue to do for my students. And so I just let them know, are you willing to help me out? If you're not, do you know someone who might be interested? I'm not asking you for a whole lot of time, but this is what I plan. And just kind of bullet pointing everything that, what my vision is. And I've just been, like I said, so lucky that we've had professors and staff to be able to want to help me. But I also want to say that we do leverage our director too, Dr. Christina Rogers, who's also faculty in the School of Education. So she also connects us with a lot of great folks on campus that are willing to come out.
So you hear that grassroots efforts and kind of starting with one and leveraging that they are transfers. So that transfer identity is seen in such a positive light for those who identify as transfers that they're like, oh yeah, where can I get back? You want me to talk? Not a problem. Okay, that's cool. So Stella's grassroots efforts really helped that. Yeah. So thank you all so much for coming. We'll be up here for questions if you have any questions. Thank you and have a great rest of your conference. Get some more coffee.